Hello Dream Team, welcome along to the good, the bad and the rugby in partnership with our very good friends at Continental Tires. First things first, what a sensational Saturday. But when the tide goes out, it is England who fall agonisingly short at Eden Park once again. It's Wales who fall to their ninth consecutive defeat, and it is well done Ireland who take it to the wire against the world champion Springboks and come away with the smiles. None bigger than on the chops of Shane Horgan, who's come straight from studio as one of our expert panel to debrief the final Summer Series Saturday. A very warm welcome to Shaggy, to John Fox-Davis and to Mike Tindall. The first thing we have to say is that Shane has come running into the room with a mega pint and thoroughly deserved as well. Raise your glass to the boys in green.
Couldn't find the black stuff though.
No, it doesn't travel well. It doesn't travel well.
Yeah.
That's been dispatched by Jimmy Anderson yesterday. Well done, Jimmy Anderson. Give us a bit of a debrief, though, on events that you have just watched. How big for Ireland?
Incredible. And there's a bit of background to it as well, in that the Irish lads had a meeting during the week. I think it was quite open and honest, and I didn't think they were at the pitch physically. They thought they were sort of dominated a bit by South Africa. Apparently the intensity in training went up. It was a very physical week in training. I think they felt a bit sort of, particularly with the Slyman hit on Casey. They thought, they'd just been out-muscled. And my goodness, did they turn it around today. That was as physical a half of rugby as I've ever seen from Ireland. It was incredible. There was more claret spilt in that, I was going to say 40 minutes, but I think it was nearly a 60-minute opening half because everybody was getting split. So, to put in that sort of physical performance and, put it up to the world champions in their own backyard, it was a brilliant performance. And listen, it ebbed and flowed. It had everything, that test match. But what bottle from Frawley. We've been talking about this guy for a long time now and praying he gets the opportunity that I think his talent deserves. And he showed with the 2 drop goals and actually the play from deep, the kick to make South Africa, carry it over and give themselves the opportunity. What bottle and what a win for Ireland, one for the ages.
One of the things I thought was, as soon as he lined up for the drop goal to win it, I just thought of that Champions Cup final as well, where he was utterly desolate at the end. He had the chance to win at the end of normal time. A lot of people have had a lot to say about him, but have we seen him really sort of unearth a new talent today?
Yeah, and you know what? We probably should have unearthed them long before now. And I'm not saying, listen, he comes in, he takes over for Crowley. Crowley's really developing and doing really well as well. But we've got I think a real talent in Frawley, and he's a very complete footballer. He does a lot of things right. And his capacity, his ceiling, I think, is very, very high. He just hasn't been playing enough games. He just, and I think I really be hopeful that the debate in Leinster is over now. Give this guy the jersey. He's the number one. Back this horse and get him game time and let him, let's see how well he can go. And let's see, can he really push Crowley in that jersey? Can he, deliver a European Cup for Leinster? But listen, it wasn't just him. The whole pack delivered massively well. James Ryan, was a man demented. Doris, another huge performance.
McCarthy got the niggle in there as well.
Yeah.
He sort of stood up to him.
He was
there was a
very
lot
South
of niggle,
African,
wasn't there, Tins? Yeah, there was a lot of niggle, and you kind of need that to be able to sort of beat them. And then, listen, 2 weeks ago, who thought of Osborne as a 15? Like, nobody. And he had a almost flawless game. He was remarkable in the air, and he was a big part of what Ireland were doing as well.
John Fox, you have stood toe to toe with those Springboks before. I mean, watching on the sofa was exhausting and painful. Can you just put into words what those Ireland boys have been through today?
Well, I think the interesting point was the preparation of the week went up a notch. I think they realised this is what happened the week before, and they didn't want that to happen again. And like Shaggy was saying, the amount of claret spilt, it was like, Rocky and Apollo Creed. There was, the first 20 minutes felt like it was 40 minutes, and they really took the game to them. And you saw, knock-ons from Esther Beth and these guys who don't get phased and love that physical presence. And Ireland really took it to them, and they got their reward. It took a while, and I think South Africa will be probably. They were a bit shell-shocked in the first half, and obviously Rassie gave them a real rocket at half-time, and they came out far better. But like you said, for credit at the end there, those 2 drop goals were absolutely outstanding work.
The Mike Tindall derby goes the way of Ireland, round 2. Put that into words for us.
No, I think Ireland deserved it on today's performance. I thought, as we talked about, how they ramped up the physicality, no backward step, bravery as well. I mean, to run, I know they sort of had to run it from their own line at the end, but then to do it with such precision that they did, around the corner and out the back, then James Lowe putting that sort of grubber, the kick on the edge and chasing down, and then his belief. I think obviously hitting that 45er probably filled him with belief that he could do it again, and then to execute it, it's Johnny Sexton-esque, isn't it, from that France game?
It looked like quite a funny strike though, the one to win it. He sort of it wasn't like a sort of golf swing.
Don't analyse the flight of it. It went over. No one's going to remember what it looked like. Jeez, that's all that people count. It's getting better every time he tells it with each point.
And I love the celebration as well. As he starts running off, he's running to his teammates. He's just so. Well, you would be as well. He's just over the moon, and he's running to the boys how about that? Thank you very much.
I love that as well. It was it's not a usual celebration for rugby, because it just, rugby doesn't often create sort of moments just like that. It was very unique, and his celebration was unique, but you could see just the unbridled joy. That was more than just kicking the goal. It was everything else, all the baggage that's gone on for that guy for the last few years as well. And as you said, Alex, missing that kick, albeit by a fraction in the European Cup final only a couple of weeks ago. It sort of just shows kind of, the character of the guy. But listen, it was... Let's make no mistake as well, South Africa really wanted to win this Test series. They really did. And they put out a team more capped than any other South African team ever. On the way back in the car, I was looking at some of the images of the press conference, and Rassie is about as sick as I am happy. So I think that's an important thing as well, in that, there is a rivalry that's building up here. Yes, listen, there's no doubt South African are, world number ones. They're the best team in the world. This single result doesn't change that, world champions. But what it does do is make a rivalry that, rugby needs. Rugby needs rivalries outside of the traditional ones. And it sort of, it makes, I would say even a few years ago, the interest in a South Africa-Ireland game would be much less than it is at the moment. And, when they play next, everybody will be out to watch that game again, beyond people just in Ireland and South Africa.
I'm just going to throw a spanner in the works. They've played 3 times and Ireland have won 2, so we know who the best team in the world is.
Stop it.
He's lit the fuse.
But that is exactly what it's become down to. Obviously, Ireland playing in the first games of the Six Nations. Everyone who got interviewed after said Ireland is probably the best team in the world, and it just grated against the South African fans and the team, because it's something that they take quite personally. And this was always, they wanted to prove a point. You're right, they wanted to destroy Ireland and go, look, who's the number 1 team in the world? And yes, they might have felt that they got that and in the first game, but if you look at that's margins as well. A couple of errors from James Lowe basically cost them 2 tries. You take those out of it, it's a very close game, and today was the same, and it's just gone the other way. But you look at all these games, they've all come down to close to 1 try, and it just shows still how good international rugby is and how close it is at the top.
Foxy, is there a better rivalry right here, right now? Sort of forgetting history, but in terms of the quality on display, is there a better rivalry than Ireland-South Africa in the World Game at the moment?
I don't think so. I think you look at how those 2 teams performed today and last week. Take you 2 games of spectacle in the series, and it's so impressive to watch that physicality and then that ability to move the ball, composure under all that pressure. A couple of times those balls out the back from the forwards didn't go to hand, but even when the game progressed and the pressure was coming, that they were able to deliver that. And I think where they are now, with that little bit of bite from, the press conference, what's been said in the media, I think, like we said, the next game is going to be really interesting. Who's going to take it up another notch, and I think South Africa will be hurting massively because they were desperate to win it because they reverted back to type in how they played, because they thought, right, let's really show down how we know how to win games, and Ireland didn't let them get anywhere really. They, bar those charge downs and the Quagga Smith chance, they didn't really look like scoring. So like credit to Andy, Ireland's defence today.
Can I ask you, Shane, a quick couple of questions on Andy Farrell? So first things first, 50th Test in charge of Ireland. I mean, brilliant for those in green, but actually I think it's really interesting with what's coming next year as well. The answers he has found in a week to some big questions that were posed of his team, and that problem solving, I think, is a really good sign for the Lions. But did we also see, I suppose, when you compare Ireland today with almost all the other sides, perhaps bar Wales, the benefit of their consistency of coaching? Everyone else has changed, bar Wales, who are now going through a very turbulent time. But did you see an Ireland side that has carried on from the World Cup rather than is trying to find a new game post-World Cup?
Yeah, we sort of spoke about it. What was this Irish team going to look like in the sort of post-Six Nations world? And even the post-World Cup world, there's no sort of panic. And I think the opening game of the Six Nations against France buoyed Ireland to say, actually, we're on the right track. We just have to do what we're doing a bit better. Now, I think that would have wavered through the Six Nations, and I don't think anybody in Ireland came out of the Six Nations going, Ireland have this boxed off, and we're very confident going down into South Africa. So I think there's always in rugby there's a need to innovate and develop, but you need to couple that with what I think Andy Farrell has brought this week as well, which is being able to tap into what we know is a massive part of international rugby, which is emotion. And, I wasn't certain if Ireland could do that. Now, we said last week, I thought, there was a chance, but, it took quite a turnaround, and we saw it. There was no comparison the way Ireland played, from in the physical stakes in the second half, in the second test compared to the first test. And also, he made some tough decisions. He dropped his captain. He dropped Peter O'Mahony. That's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but he did it, and it worked really well. I think bringing Ringrose back worked really well as well. As I said, nobody was talking about Osborne 2 weeks ago. It was 15. It's worked well for him as well. And he has stuck with Frawley when Leinster hadn't stuck with him. Leinster, but if you were following the Leinster route, you would have had Ross Byrne on tour, and that wasn't the case. So listen, he is doing a number of things really right. Will he need to keep on innovating and changing and keep that I suppose more sophisticated play that Ireland at their best perform? Yeah, he'll need to keep on doing that. But listen, he hasn't done bad for 50 caps, has he?
No, pretty damn good.
We always say though, Ireland they can always raise their game to prove a point. I think you still see what they can do tactically. That first try, the Conor Murray try, flooding down that midfield, inside, outside, inside. It's just that's off the training paddock textbook of what they can do in those moments when their game plan comes off. But normally, being English, we always quite get used to them raising their emotional game whenever we're playing them, either for a Grand Slam or they're going to win one. So we've always been, I think 3 times I've been on the end of losing a Grand Slam to them. So, it was when they turn up in that mood, they are very hard to beat. And you can't underestimate that first drop goal and how much, because you just felt momentum was shifting, wasn't it? It was like penalty after penalty after penalty, and Pollard was just in that zone, bang, through the middle, and you're like, here it comes, just that juggernaut that you've got to try and stop, and that really sort of just turned the tide, and the tails went back up, and the belief came back in, and fair play to them. They went out and earned it.
Quick question to you, Tins, because as we record this, the dust, I don't think it's even fallen, let alone settled, so we haven't yet got Rassie's post-match debrief, but you're in a group with 1,000 South Africans. I don't know why you do it. Where does this leave? What is the impact of this loss for South Africans?
There was less moaning on there. I think everyone appreciated the game from everything. There was a couple of niggles around that so-called obstruction on Cheslin Colby where he fell
I watched
over.
it back. That was a
clear
and obvious dive.
Yeah, exactly. And he hasn't moved at all. He sort of slipped into him. But so no, I think everyone appreciated the test, and as it was going through, all it was like, wow, they've turned up to play and they've turned up physically. We've been manhandled, especially in that first half. So I think there's a lot of appreciation for it. And I think what Shane was saying earlier, I think people are now looking. It started in the World Cup with how, and so many people now reference that as the game we want to see around physicality and how a game should be played when it needs to be played that way. And now, obviously, with rugby, you don't always have to play it that way. It can be played in many different ways, but when he turns up and it has that, it's enthralling. It just is. That's why it's called a test match, because you look at how much claret, as Shane said, was out there today. That is what tests your soul, and fair play to the Irish boys today. They stood up to it.
One more quick line: 55-week season for those Irish boys.
Yeah.
I hope that they're not seen again until mid-October in preparation for the autumn series, but. Can you just put that body of work into some context, Shaggy? And Foxy. The toll that has taken to raise themselves for one last hurrah requires what?
Well, listen, I don't know how long they're going to be in Durban, but I'm going to take them a while to get out of the boozers there tonight. So they're going to have
They'll probably come out mid-October.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And I have to have a decent break. But yeah, it has, and there's a number of players that have referenced the length of the season, which kind of
speaks
to something as well. If players are referencing it, then they're feeling it, and it's in their minds. Ireland need a massive reboot, and part of that is downtime now. And if they don't commit to this proper downtime, there's dangers in the future. So what they can do now is leave on a high. And understand that there's the fundamentals to what Ireland are doing are there, and they can tap into a resolve that has been proven now. But yeah, it has been a very, very long slog, and after the massive disappointment, emotional disappointment of the World Cup, they need a substantial break now, and it's a substantial break will be much more benefit than sort of any length of pre-season. These guys are in great shape. They just need to top up late in the year.
If you're thinking it's then going into a Lions year that's going to be a ridiculously long year again, the governing bodies really have to look after these players. Obviously, it's easier for sort of the
provinces.
Provinces and Wales and everyone else, but it's very hard for those English guys. But they need looking after.
Those Leinster boys will be all right. They only play Champions Cup rugby. They don't play USC, so
I know knockout phases now, Foxy.
Yeah, knockout phases. Yeah, they won't turn up until December, so those boys will be all right.
Good little nick to the kidneys. Where Ireland could, England couldn't. As they gave it absolutely everything. And we're talking about how much was left in the tank, and we're talking about player management. I'd be fascinated to see how England might have fared with a couple of extra weekends off for some of those boys. But Mike, put into some sort of context the performance, the results, and where England sit at the end of this mammoth season, one that began with a loss at home to Fiji.
Yeah, look, if you take it from all the way back there, they're in a completely different place. They're competing every game. I think, like the South Africa Ireland game, it was a game of margin, very much in margins today. And could have quite easily swung other way. It's disappointing when you talk about tiredness. England looked pretty in control and for 60 minutes, and even though they were only 4 points up, they probably left a bit out there. And then, for whatever reason, I did think it was weird. Those subs in 48 minutes. I thought even though Underhill hadn't been stand out, he was sweeping up so much stuff, and then to make 3 changes just off the bat when you're sort of in the zone and you're managing the game. I thought Marcus Smith managed the game quite really well without doing anything exceptional. I thought there were players who were just doing the dirty work. I thought Itoje was outstanding. And they were in there till the last play of the game, and I don't agree with the referee decision on that maul. Whether I'm not saying I should know anything about mauling, and probably no one on this call really should know anything about mauling. But for me, I see shear offs like that all the time. He was still connected. I don't quite understand, but I don't know what it was going to be if he was held up anyway. It would have been a scrum, wouldn't it? And that'd be the end of the game anyway.
A bit of goal line dropout. But Jamie George was saying he was short, so it should have been play on. He doesn't know why it was blown.
So yeah, I think they'd be disappointed. I thought again, Farrell he needs the ball in his hands more and more. He's like the Talea for New Zealand. Just no one can seem to bring him down behind the gain line. I thought Lawrence did his job in terms of getting over gain line and doing bits and pieces like that. So again, it's another game they'll go away frustrated. They'll be coming home frustrated that they could have, should have, maybe would have won both tests. I thought they probably controlled that test better than the first one. And unfortunately, I would say a mistake from probably Freddie Stewart in terms of just giving his prop too much to do on the inside, whereas he should have come in and tried to push out and protect that outside channel with Marcus Smith coming around the back. But they're fine margins. I thought, whether it was just tiredness getting into the last 20 minutes, and a few penalties that caused them to lose. But I think they're considering where they were in pre World Cup, they're a completely different team, and there's so many exciting players in there that I think we've got a lot to look forward to.
They did beat Wales with 12 men pre-World Cup, so it wasn't all bad at that point. It was a hell of a photo.
Jeez, that's a bit harsh, Al.
Yeah. Well, now we're getting spicy. What I was going to do at this point is welcome, as always, the journalists from the Western Mail who track everything that Foxy says in public. And the breaking news for them is that pre-recording this, Fox said that he will be supporting England in the final of Euro 2024. What that leads on to is sort of, your view of what England are putting together, albeit without necessarily getting the results. But what have you seen in performance from the England rugby team? Not just over the last two tests, but also over the course of 2024.
I thought today, I know Tins, you said Mark Smith controlled the game well. I felt at times the New Zealand defence where Smith felt that he had no options outside. He took a lot of contact, and I think that they missed Furbank at fullback today. I think he sees space very well, and he gets the ball there, and I think he would have helped Smith just free up that backline a bit more, probably. But his kicking game was outstanding. The way they manipulated the backfield and got the 15 of New Zealand in that first ruck to be able to then free up the space for Waboso's crossfield kick, I thought it was, really well executed. And like you said, the talent they have. For me, on New Zealand side, Talia, the work rate he has, how many touches he gets a game, I think is probably far higher than any other wing in world rugby. And for me, you got to get Farrell on the ball as much as he is, because he is so dangerous in contact. The meters after contact, these big forwards seem to struggle to stop him, and he's, you got to get him in the game as much as you can. And I think they seem pretty settled. The back row was good today. Powerful, kept working hard, and I think they're in a good spot to really build over the coming months and years. I think they'd be happy where they finish up this tour, but obviously, like you said, it could have been so much better with a little bit, probably a bit more punch and a bit more in the legs, because the boys did seem pretty tired out there. But no, I think they're in a good spot, and they seem to be building a culture as well. That the leaders they have in there, they've obviously lost, Laws and Farrell. Smith seems to be stepping up. Chandler himself is a real athlete that he needs to touch a ball as well. So I think they're in a good spot to really launch themselves to get back to that top team in the world.
I'd say one thing that I noticed, if you went through positive restarts, their pressure off restarts, they were causing all sorts of pressure for New Zealand. Their own line-out, New Zealand line-out pressure, New Zealand's line-out really didn't function today, so they've obviously got that sort of side. Their own line-out was pretty clean, even though New Zealand's second half did cause bit of disruption. So when you got your nuts and bolts right,
Scrum?
but then you look at Scrum. Obviously, is an issue. It wasn't going their way today. But if you think that you've got potentially Ellis coming back into that, you've got Sinks who wants to fight his way back in.
Not for 2 or 3 years though. I mean, that's not a quick fix.
No, but I think that is. We said this before the tour. That is probably one of the biggest things we need a solution to. And that's not having to go at like Dan Cole or John Marlowe. That's just the nature of their age, everything else. That we need people pushing them, who are going to then come in. But saying that, Finn Baxter was amazing around the field. I thought his carrying, his work rate, his defensive stuff
was great.
Was great. So it's finding that balance, but you need a scrum that you can function off. And that is something we've got to work on. Whether that's, I know that every scrum coach in the world will never do this and go, maybe you just got to get it in and out quick. But every scrum coach says, no, I think we can take them. Well, it's like, just don't worry about it. If it's not going our way, let's just get it in, get it out. Which towards the end, I think they were trying to do better with Ben Earl, who's trying to lift it away quicker. But there was one thing that was a little bit annoying is how good the crossfield kicks were. Obviously, two different players. The Freeman one was basically right. Let's just get our big unit going up for the ball over theirs, and we reckon we can dominate. But then there was a couple of times where they still put those grubbers in a way when they felt there was nothing on. And I feel we should be going past that now with the players that we've got. We've seen that with Faye Bosa when he turns up, he can just make something happen. Furbank when he's playing can that. And Freddie Stewart's a big unit, so he can do that as well. And I feel we've got to trust ourselves. When we had control of the ball, we looked in control. When we started kicking away and we gave them opportunities for loose play, like Bodie Barrett came on, for example. He changed the game, I would say, for New Zealand. But we gave them opportunities for that looseness, which we hadn't done. We box kicked exceptionally well. Mitchell kicked the ball, and we got after them and we pressured them every time. And I felt we just, in that last 20 minutes, we possibly lost control of that a little bit, and that then allowed them to sort of get a bit of their play into the game, and they got that try off the back of that.
But Tins, I also think there was a couple of, for all that, I thought there was just a couple of key moments that England could have turned the screw, and just they released the pressure valves, and a couple of them were silly. There was in particular, closing the gap in the line out.
That free kick 5 minutes.
Why do that? I think that could have been the game there. That could have been the game. And then there was I think there was another a penalty off the line out, and then another error, which you just thought, actually, these are the All Blacks, at home. And they're the kind of moments that you can't give up, and you have to you take them. Now, there's positives that England were in that position to do it, but I think actually if they look back on that film, they'll actually regret that, because there's something weird that has happened, I think, with New Zealand in the last couple of years, number of years. That complete aura of it felt like invincibility it's not there in the same way as it was. It's just not. And actually, we all got to jump on that.
Yeah.
Because,
everyone needs to help everybody.
Everyone needs to help everyone here. Northern Hemisphere, all hands in. Because if we sort of break that down, they may build that up again with a new generation of players, but it's not right there at the moment. And let's keep them down while we can. That's not to say they're not a great team. And of course, they knocked Ireland out of the World Cup. But there is a sense that there's a slight more fragility there than there's ever been in the history of maybe the last 100 years.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Because New Zealand's line out today wasn't functioning, and they would have had doubt in that line out. After error after error, England didn't need to pressure them. They are right. You're in your own position. You have to work to get out of here, and then they would then. Pressure does amazing things to people, and they would have coughed up possession potentially, giving it back to England in a better position. It's just, those big key moments in a test match where you have to remain cool when you're tired and you're thinking about other things. It's just that, it does weird things to you, but I think the more these boys get exposed to it, when it comes to it again, they learn from it, and then they're able to then execute. I think it was just like you said, they let them off the hook today, I think.
Especially when you've been warned, and once you've been warned for closing the gap, you just can't do it. You just why take that risk anymore when you're dominant in that area? But yeah, that's going to be the frustration for them. They're going to go back, genuinely thinking we've missed an opportunity to take a scalp that would be very meaningful for us. But there you go. As long I know that everyone immediately, from what I've read in the press conferences, like at least we've got a great team that we can build on, and this has been an experience we can build on. But it would have been far better if you'd had a win under the belt as well.
So that is a really good point, because if you go back to that World Cup semi-final, which I think England were leading, what was it? Was it 16-6 with 12 minutes to go or something like that? I can't remember these precise scores. Someone could correct me. But that was a massive coulda, woulda, shoulda. If you take the other mountaintops of the season, I suppose, since then, which is obviously the win over Ireland, unbelievable. The very, very narrow loss to France, which they should have done, and 2 tests in New Zealand where, frankly, they were leading at half-time in both. End of a long campaign, yes, but there will be massive regrets that they haven't. How much longer, Tins, can England keep going on this path of we're playing really well and we're right in it, but we're not quite doing it? At what point does that flip round to, guys, this team needs to start actually nailing some of these big moments as it builds towards, Australia 2027?
I think for England this autumn series, obviously they're playing all the big dogs again.
So they've got New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Japan. Is that 3 out of 4 minimum they got to win?
Yeah, I would. At home, you've got to be expecting at Twickenham to take. I would say all of those. Realistically, there is no reason why we shouldn't be going and winning all of those at home. That's where they are. I think that's where this team should be aiming and where it should be going after. I think we've got enough talent there. I think we've had some players that have really stepped up. We've talked about Urboso, we've talked about Freeman, all these guys for like first year internationals, and yet they're acting like they're seasoned pro. I mean, they are our 10. We're going to see where we go with our fly half. That's going to be interesting to see who's going to continuously win that battle, whether it's going to be Marcus, whether it's going to be Finn Smith that comes in. Obviously, you've still got George Ford knocking around. So you've got 3 genuine contenders for that. Is Steve just going to stick with one and go, right, get consistency, this is how we're going to play, or are you going to have a battle out on form? Does chopping and changing work? We know it doesn't really work. We need to try and get some consistency, so he's probably going to have to pin his colours to someone. I think you found a centre pairing that are finding their feet because they've got consistency in selection and they know that they're going to play together. I think we've got a back 3 that can rival anyone now in terms of what they can do. And then our pack's always been up to match. Yes, we're talking about that front row and what goes on with there. Obviously, I don't know how Theo Dan is. Hopefully, he's all right. But that's possibly that is the only area we need to sort of shore up and figure out what we're going to do with. And I like the balance of the team throughout. Outside that, and I think if we're talking like that, then you've got to expect to win those home games, and you've got to be able to take everyone on.
Just talking front rows, I really wanted to get this news line in from Ireland, which is that Ireland are banning its provinces from signing overseas front row players from 2025, which is a really interesting move. It shows what you can do and how you can bring through the next generation if you really need to. I mean, wow.
I mean, it is insane how good the South African front row is.
Yes.
It's just, Porter and Furlong are 2 of our greatest in Northern Hemisphere. And, Ox was just insanely good today. And Merber just does his job relentlessly well. And I suppose it suits their game. Mahaba, sorry. I suppose it suits their game because, they have the bomb squad and everything else. And, people get drawn into that physicality, and even Ireland sometimes today where there was a little tip on for the next runner and they ran into 2 very, very big men. It sort of sucks you in there, and then but at scrum time they're insane.
I just thought it was really interesting that Ireland are making moves because they recognise how important it is to have a deep stock of props. Can I ask?
I was actually generally wondering during the Ireland game, it was like, I wonder if they ever bring the under-20s props into just prop against, and go, right, lads, you've got to start teaching these boys, because this is coming, and we need to make them as good as we can do, as quickly as we can do.
Tinder, it's funny, I was having the exact same conversation with Rory Best, because we were discussing the fact that, I think it's a David Humphreys-led initiative. I think it's a really, necessary one. And this doesn't just go for Ireland, but there has to be a complete refocus on developing props, because no scrum, no win. We know that. Even today was made much more difficult by the troubles that we had at scrum time. We also know it's a unique position. There's not a huge amount of people with the sort of body shape, natural body shape that you need to be able to do this. So we need to sort of be identifying body shapes, and then we actually need to be running clinics. And I was saying, Rory was telling me, listen, it's far from my area of expertise, but he was telling me that actually they just need time and time and time on technique, which they never get. They just don't get, and that means sort of bringing in, getting the provinces together, or getting the national props together, or getting the extended national props together, and the young ones coming through, and just talking technique and making it a priority, and making it something that, maybe refocusing almost as a sort of a national position, that we're going to be a scrumming nation as well, like Argentina did many years ago. So it is definitely an area that sort of everyone needs to develop, because if you don't get it going, you're left against a South African team that can win with just that.
I'm just laughing because if it takes 10,000 hours to become a pro at something, 10,000 hours of scrummaging, I think I'll leave to the next generation.
It's a struggle to find those guys, I'll be honest with you.
10,000 hours of eating, I thought you were going to say.
I'll stick to Crown Green bowls. That's my forte. Can I ask each of you a quick sort of debrief on New Zealand? Too early to tell what the Razor Robertson era is going to look like? Seeds of growth? Is he going to find it harder at the sharper end of international rugby than he did at the Crusaders? What's your summation of the All Blacks over the two tests? Foxy?
I think obviously they've got great talent, but they seem to make a lot of mistakes, and I think they feel pressure, like we were talking about earlier. And I think Razor's going to have a little bit of time now in this before this Rugby Championship to really debrief what they've seen and try and get improvement. I think they can get more out of Jordie Barrett. We didn't see much of him in the first two tests, I don't think. I think Rico Ioane is one of the best players in the team. And I think, these boys need to touch the ball, and, they have got the platform with a great scrum. We've seen that, but let's really try and test teams out. That's what New Zealand have always done. They've tested you. They've upped the speed of the game. They've really tried to put you under pressure by taking you out of your comfort zone. So I think, will we see that going back to that real confident-looking team? I don't know, but I think they still have the talent. You can see that. It's just whether or not they can, decide on what they want to be. They were blitzing really hard today, but obviously those crossfield kicks were just getting so much gain for England. So it's whether or not they stick to it or go back to what they used to defend like.
I'm keen to see how they innovate, and I think they will innovate during this period. But just back to my sort of previous point is that All Blacks jersey, I felt in many ways insulated them against pressure, and it was it was a kind of a, I don't know, it was like a kind of a powerful cloak that they had on, and it meant that one, it intimidated the opposition, but it actually elevated them and their performance. I think what we are seeing in the last little while is almost a pressure that comes with the with the All Black jersey now. That means that they're inhibited in the way they play. That we've seen in the same fashion that we've seen other teams sort of be intimidated by pressure. So part of this sort of redevelopment and with Razor will be trying to reestablish that as a comfort blanket as opposed to an issue for them.
We should say it's going to be a fascinating Rugby Championship, of course, and it'll be great to have an Australian side heading into that who've won 2 from 2, have got a bit of a bounce, a bit more game to them, a bit more structure potentially under Joe Schmidt. Shall we do Wales first of all, though? Because the headline is 9 losses in a row, and there were times in watching that you sort of saw it cut to Warren Gatland in the commentary box, and he's not a man who ever wants sympathy, but you just felt this is quite a tough time for him at the helm of it. But What did you see? What did you like about Wales today, Fox, in the way they just gave it everything they had at the very end of the season?
Yeah, look, I thought at the start of the game we moved the ball, really well. We kept it, but then we ended up kicking away quite poorly, or whether it was a poor crossfield kick or a grubber in behind, and it gave the ball back to Australia. But I think we needed to keep the ball for a little bit longer, move them around a bit, and that hard work would have paid off in the second half. I think Liam Williams' try was a perfect example of that. That patience and move the ball and test Australia. It took about 15 phases to get the try, but that's how, if we're not going to break down teams as easily as we used to do, we got to make sure that we can keep the ball for long periods and be almost like how comfortable Ireland are in retaining the ball for as many phases. The line out drive has been proven to be a real weapon, and yeah, I just think there was quite a lot of positive to take away how we did move the ball. I think we looked in tough conditions far more accurate. We kept the ball and we asked more questions of Australia today, and that was a big improvement for what happened last week.
One of the things that was, I always remember reading about the group that you were part of that was so successful, is that it was more club Wales than sort of international team Wales. It was a really tight group. And it was interesting that Gatland said afterwards, I know how young the group is in terms of caps, but I'm telling you, this is going to be a really good team. Is that Gatland's psychology telling his players, almost sort of hauling them up? Or do you see genuine truth in what the head man has said there?
Look, I've definitely seen improvement this year. I think we've, quite a few of the young boys have had exposure at the highest levels, and they'll get better for it. I think, Rio Dyer's played a huge amount of rugby, test rugby now the last 18 months or so since his first cap, I think, and he's become, one of the standout players for Wales today. And I think, Dewi Lake is becoming a real leader of that pack. He enjoys that pressure. I think we still got Jack Morgan to come back in, and it's I think we talked about it last week. The strength and depth in Wales isn't there, so we need to, like you said, retain those boys and have them available for as many campaigns as we can to really build that confidence and let this team grow and start competing and getting results that they want. Obviously the endeavour was fantastic, and but there was, again, the positive was there was a lot more accuracy today than it was last week, so that was good for me.
Would you be encouraged if you're a Wales fan, Shane, or would you be very concerned?
I think I'd be more encouraged off the back of that performance. I think Foxy there mentioned Derry. I think he was a real sort of standout performer, and I think is going to be increasingly a talisman for Wales. And we spoke last week about sort of more systemic issues, but you also can do a lot with a core group that are right. And I felt, maybe Gatland is saying it because it's necessary to say it, but I felt that sort of that team Wales feeling existed more today than I've seen maybe any time in the last couple of years, to be honest with you, and that's despite some good results in the World Cup. So there's I would be more hopeful and optimistic necessarily than pessimistic, and the more game time this group gets together, they will, we know how important sort of consistency of selection is, exposure at the top level, and yeah, I think they will relish a bit more time together before the autumn, and potentially getting the sort of the train back on the track to be a team that can challenge, maybe not to win the Six Nations next year, but actually, their next step is to be able to beat anyone on a given day, if that makes sense. And they haven't been that team. They've been the team that's looked like they are unlikely to beat anyone on their given day, especially the last Six Nations. But I don't think they're a million miles off getting back to that again.
A word on Australia, Tins, because we were referencing the fact that England have come a hell of a long way in 12 months. Australia have got 12 months to go until the Lions arrive. How much growth do you potentially see in what Joe Schmidt's putting together?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real tough thing to sort of break down where Wales are, because we don't really know where Australia are. We're going to find out over the next sort of 2 months through the Rugby Championship what fundamentals are. Because if you look at how they performed, they looked by far a way better outfit than they looked in the World Cup. They looked like they've got, their nuts and bolts are very much. Way tighter than what they've been. They've obviously got people like Wright who have got just class. Kellaway, I think, has always been class.
Yeah.
Then that Pasami carries like he's angry. Plus, then you've got, if you look at, I thought McWright played well today. Valentini was strong, and the front rower, the biggest calves in the world on Tupou. Even though someone had to rub them, that is a tough job, isn't it? It's like basting a ham,
massaging a cow,
massaging a cow. So you just don't. You don't really know. Obviously, you've got Lolosio at 10 that Eddie chose not to take and left at home, who's come in there, and so you don't. Still really don't know where they are. They look good. I think we know they've got talent. We always knew they had young talent, and I think we'll find out where they're at over the next 2 months, and that's also going to help sort of Wales figure out what those two performances meant as well. I thought James Botham today was outstanding for Wales. Brilliant. By the way. I think he had 12 carries. He carried for the most out of anyone in the team, and then he made 12 tackles off the back of it. So
I tell you, I'm more interested in this Rugby Championship this year than I've been in a very long time.
I completely agree with you. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. There's so much jostling for position, isn't there?
I thought Australia they looked dangerous, and I think they showed good patience. But then, is that a lack of ambition when they got into a real good strike zone where they were just one pass rugby constantly? And I just felt that they could have pulled the trigger a little bit more, like we talked about. Wright, Kellaway, these are dangerous rugby players, and I thought that. Inability to move the ball wide and have a go and really test Wales's defence out wide, because they just kept going off 9 or pick and go when they got close. And yes, they kept the ball for 20 phases, but then didn't get anywhere in the end. So no, I think it's how they evolve that game from, yes, we can get into the 22, we can have a go at pick and go, but how we got the ability then to really test a team when the defenses are far narrower. That's something I'd like to see where they take their game.
Andy Farrell needs hopefully a couple of weeks in his speedos on a lilo in the sunshine, and then he's obviously got the autumn internationals.
I reckon that'd still look good.
He's a good-looking man, but he then obviously has got the autumn internationals. But his Lions notebook will be open from September. Just a quick final. Of course, we've been very glass half full with regards to all three of England, Ireland and Wales, but Shane's glass is almost empty, so we must wrap this up. Give us a quick summation of how excited Andy Farrell is going to be. Lions year, how good a squad could Farrell pull together? Shane?
He's got to be happy, doesn't he? He's got a kind of, there's a mix here. What you've got I think probably a mature Irish team that I think it's fair to say will probably be the bulk of the selection. You've got a Welsh team that are young, but young players with ambition and excitement and that are being blooded and will have, by the time the Lions selections comes around, will have a lot more game time. And you've got an England team on the up. And also you've got a couple of sort of megastar potential performers from Scotland as well. So listen, I think it's a very kind of it's a very promising position for Andy Farrell to be in. It's certainly better than it was 12 months ago, and I think he'll be very excited and ambitious by it. Listen, there comes a pressure with that because there's a massive expectation that he's going to win that series and do it well.
John Fox, you were there 11 years ago. I suppose the most impressive thing is that you haven't aged a day. So the power of oil of Ule twice an afternoon is obviously working wonders. But the challenge of Australia and the squad that Farrell's going to put together, how excited are you about what the next 12 months holds?
Oh, look, it's going to, the chat has started already, and it's going to be on everyone's minds where he'll go. Whether it's going to be like we said, it's going to be probably a heap of Irish contenders and England mainly so, but can the other teams push their players, get the results, and really throw their hat in the rings? And I think Australia is a great place to tour. The fans are going to be buzzing for it, and it's going to be interesting. I think this Rugby Championship will really see where Australia are, and but I don't know whether it's they'll be going up against a very, very strong Lions squad. Whichever way Andy Farrell decides to go, I think the strength of that squad could be very impressive.
Last one for you, Tins. A hell of a 12 months to come, and a hell of a 12 months it has been. Highs of World Cups, Six Nations, Europe, Premiership, URC. What a roller coaster. Rugby the winner.
Yeah, as we've said throughout, I think the standard of on the pitch this year, from the start of that Rugby World Cup to let's say the end of the Rugby Championship, will not disappoint. I think all the knockout phases of all the competitions were just insanely good. Great to watch. I think the international game is in the best place it's ever been. These games are just proving that, and how close they can be. And just edge of the seat stuff. We want to see more last minute drop goals to win matches of that physical nature, and hopefully long may that continue. And yes, roll on for us. Let's roll on. Well, let's get the players a bit of a break and then roll on the autumn series, and let's get back to it.
Can't wait. Well done, chaps. Thank you very much indeed, not just for today, but for joining us throughout the course of the season. What do you say off the back of a summer series? England probably back at top table, Ireland at the head of it. I'm joking, South Africa fans. I'm joking, because there'll be a pile on.
They're not just coming for me, Al.
I know. Such an idiot. Could have just said goodbye and thank you. Anyway, why not? Listen, everybody, thank you so much for all of your support, all of your comments, all of your feedback, for getting very stuck into all things good, bad rugby over the course of the last 12 months. I think everyone's ready, not just for a second beer, Shane, but for a bit of time on the beach as well. Enjoy it wherever you're heading. We shall see you in September for the start of a new season, a season in which the Lions are on the prowl. From all of us, enjoy your summer. Bye for now.